I think the most important thing to me with pottery is the creative process. That that I'm involved with making something that eventually will be used in someone else's life. My name is Steve Tubbs, and I make pottery. I started making pottery in high school, and that wouldn't be the full story because as we grew up, we always had clay as part of our art classes, and you would do these little odd projects. But it wasn't until I was a senior in high school and had a class that had a potter's wheel, and it's like, oh, this is cool. I'm what people in the know would call a production potter. So I specialize in the objects that you would use, every day. The plates, bowls, cups, mugs, serving pieces that would go along with a line of standard items that I make again and again and again. And some potters get tired of that. I do not. I sit down and I started to make my standard mug, and I'll make at least 16 of those, and there's pleasure in that, and repeating that form and searching for the details in that form that make it just right. I'll start by weighing out the clay, just over a pound of clay, and I throw it to a predetermined height. Mug will need to sit and set up about 1 day to a point called leather hard, where you can pick it up where it doesn't deform, and then I'll make and attach a handle to that. Then allow it to dry the rest of the way to a state called greenware. It will go into the kiln where it's fired to over 1800 degrees in what's called the bisque firing. That chemically changes the clay. After it comes out of the bisque kiln, I'll sand the edges that you would touch, just to make it a little bit smoother, and then liquid wax is applied to the bottom so that when I dip my pots in buckets of glaze, the glaze will not stick to the bottom. Glaze, which is glass-forming chemicals suspended in water, will melt, and if there's glaze on the bottom, then it sticks to the shelf. And then I'll sand it one more time just on the bottom so that when you take it home and are enjoying that cup of coffee, that you don't scratch your dining room table. Lots of different steps, and part of the immediacy and the joy of throwing pots happens rather quickly, and people can go, wow, it doesn't take very long to make that. But yet that same standard mug, I pick up and set that mug down 30 times from the start till the time that I say, okay, that's done. So it's quite a process, and because of the drying and firing times, quickest you could turn that around is even 2 weeks. This is something that's been practiced thousands and thousands of years, but there is one dramatic change in technology that has happened, and that has to do with the temperature control of the kilns. When I started, you would use a manual kiln sitter where you would put a little triangular piece of clay in a contraption inside the kiln, and it would manually shut off the kiln when you reach the temperature you wanted to. And I have to set my alarm and get up every hour, turn the dials up on the kiln so that you get the heat rise in the kiln at an acceptable and predictable rate. Now it's all computerized. I say cone 6, no hold, preheat it for 30 minutes, start it at 11 o'clock tonight, go. All the technology change I just explained, I'm still on the same potter's wheel 45 years later, 50,000 or more pots, and never had to touch it. The thing's worked like a charm ever since. So many people have gotten back to me and say, this is my favorite mug. It's lightweight, it fits my hand, I just love the way it feels, and it just starts my day off in a special way. Being inspired, and if you're lucky, that never goes away. And that joy is still there, and the hands are holding up, and yeah, it's like every day's a Saturday.